What's going on, everybody, and welcome back into yet another edition of Open Run presented to you by War Media. My name is Gabriel Wilkins, and I'm joined as always right beside my main man and backcourt partner, Josh Hicks, to discuss all that has transpired across the hardwood in the past several days as we're recording this at the top of another week and to tip off the month of June while the NBA Finals are tied up at one game apiece and making its way to Miami, where the Heat and Nuggets will look to do battle in games 3 and 4, taking place during the latter part of this week. How you feeling at the onset of a new week and month, Josh?
Always a good time to start your week off with basketball.
For sure. For sure. I can't complain myself at all this weekend, man. Just been chilling, watching basketball, watching some baseball. Sox got that sweep against the Tigers. See a Jake Burger walk-off grand slam got me feeling good. So I'm riding high into the top of another week. I can't complain at all. In this week's installment of Open Run, me and Josh will take some time to highlight and discuss all that has transpired thus far through the first two games of this year's NBA Finals between the Miami Heat and Denver Nuggets, while also taking the time to talk about what adjustments that fans should look forward the most to seeing from the two squads as the series heads down to Dade County in the coming days, including the latest news surrounding the ever-changing head coaching carousel across the association. But before we get into that, let's take a bit of time to show some appreciation for the players and organizations who have performed up to the bill, and some, as we always do, to start the show on Open Run in our Hoop Shout-Out segment. Special Hoop Shout-Outs this week go out to Denver Nuggets all-star big man Nikola Jokic, who became the first center ever in league history to ever record over 500-plus points and 100-plus assists in a single postseason, on the way to a 41-point, 11-rebound night in Game 2 of the NBA Finals against the Heat, in addition to the first player since Jason Kidd in 2002 to record a triple-double in his finals debut, as Jokic dropped 27 points, 14 assists, and hauled down 10 boards to guide the club in the Mile High City to a win in Game 1, including a team that has defied all odds in these playoffs in the Miami Heat, whose 13 wins thus far in these playoffs mark the most wins by an eighth seed in a single postseason, as the franchise whose culture has come back into prominence again across the national radar has now broken the record of the 98-99 New York Knicks, whose 12 victories on their way to a finals appearance that season previously held the record prior to the start of this year's playoffs. So after taking some time to acknowledge some history that we have seen unfold in front of our eyes throughout these NBA finals thus far, Josh, what are some top news or storylines around the world of basketball right now that stood out to you the most over the last several days?
The Chicago Sky. Khalil Copper had a career game against the New York Liberty after losing on their home floor to the Liberty, and then came back 2 days later and erased a 19, almost 20-point deficit, at Barclays Center to win the game. And Khalil Copper led the efforts, dropped in 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. Khalil Copper just on her own way reminded the world like why the Chicago Sky, no matter the fact that they lost all their arguably top tier talent from the championship run, you still got Khalil Copper, and she's shown that she's ready to. She's always been prepared. She's prepared to take that A1 spot, and she let it be known that that's what that she's capable of doing that. So shout out to the Sky. They've been doing pretty well considering the losses that they had this past offseason with the revamped roster. They're making it look like we talked about it before. This is in a rebuild season. They're making it look like a retool right now. And much major credit to James Wade and what he's doing down there. But Khalil Copper reminding the world that I am her. She is she. And you cannot counter out in any aspect when you have her running the squad. So life in Chicago right now. We'll take it.
Oh, yeah. I highlighted them last week as a team that stood out to me across the basketball landscape in the W, getting off to that 3-1 start. And I thought that was a hell of a win when you consider it was really a much needed win after they dropped the first two contests on the week against the hands of the Atlanta Dream on the road, and then that tough game in Wintrust against the Liberty, which marked Courtney Vandersloot's first return to the South Loop as a visitor. And for them to come back from down 19 the way that they did, I didn't get a chance to catch the game, but I saw some highlights and heard about it, and it was a lead story on the ESPN ticker. I was impressed to see that, because this is a team that a lot of people have had questions about, as you alluded to, considering all the pieces that they have lost, and yet they still found a way to still remain above 500 after a tough week, which featured a home and home series with a team that so many of us in the New York Liberty expect to see in this year's WNBA finals a couple of months from now. But keeping it WNBA related, man, I got to give kudos to the Connecticut Sun. You know, Dewana Bonner, the veteran, continuing to get it done at a high level. Alyssa Thomas continuing to get it done at a high level without John Quell Jones, without the head coach that led them, you know, to so many runs over the last several years, and my man Kurt Miller. And it goes to show you how, while you can have all these preseason predictions about who's going to make it, you don't know. And even though they've played some teams that one might have questions about, you know, thus far, such as the Fever, the Lynx, they found a way to prevail in those games, man. And that's a great thing to see. And, you know, they even took down the Mystics, a team that many of us, include myself, view to be a dark horse contender in regard to getting to the finals. So the Connecticut Sun right now doing their thing, and you can't forget about the Aces. You know, knocking off Indiana in a hard-fought contest on the road. Asia Wilson putting up 20 and 10 left and right. They definitely living up to the bill, and showing why a lot of us believe they will be the prohibitive favorite to likely go back-to-back in regards to winning the WNBA championship again in 2023. That's been a team that's been doing the damn thing as well. So I have to give kudos to the ladies, especially the ladies of the Las Vegas Aces and the Connecticut Sun, for the job that they've done thus far, as both of them sit first place within their respective conferences in the W right now.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Especially when we talk about the Aces. The Aces have a chance to become the dynasty like the Houston Comets were when the WNBA first started.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I like that.
That's for all you real WNBA fans that know the history of the game like that. The Houston Comets with Cheryl Swoops and Tina Thompson, you know, that era was such a special era where you always knew and saw the budding of what could be very special within the WNBA. And that's where the Aces have a chance to go, because they got the coach, they got Becky Hammond, they got a winner. You got Asia Wilson, who is literally arguably the face of the WNBA right now. And you have the additional reinforcements that have shown and proven, put them in the right situations, they will shine. The Kelsey Plums, Chelsea Grays, Jackie Youngs. Those pieces are very serviceable, and the structure of that core is solidified. So it's at a young age now, to where once they're hitting their prime, they're hitting it hard right now. And it also helps that you have someone like a Candace Parker who can help lead you to the promised land at least one more time before she has even consider calling it quits. So the Aces are poised to be that next level franchise that the WNBA desperately needs to help advance the league in the way that it can go, and they got the right pieces to do it, man. And even the Connecticut Sun, seeing them win in the way that they're winning. Mind you, you talked about how they're not doing without John Quell Jones. They're doing it without Courtney Williams too. She was one of the real strong pieces of that championship run team last year, who is now on our Chicago Sky. Without doing it without her and the versatility that she brings on both ends of the floor, I think that's very impressive, considering with like you said everything that that has taken place throughout this team in the offseason. So, you know, the WNBA is not as soft of a league as it once was. It's a very competitive league now in every aspect that no matter which game you play, you really don't know what to expect nowadays. And that's a good sight for the league as a whole. And we obviously hope we hope that it will continue as the league continues to grow and stronger year by year. But it's a good space right now to be a WNBA fan and a true basketball fan at heart.
Oh, for sure. You know, the league is definitely growing. And
Mm-hmm.
no doubt you can't take away from that. And I hope it continues to grow, especially in an era where, you know, the game is going global and is becoming a universal sport. Now, I think that it will, but the product itself, as far as the players are concerned, I don't think you can really have any complaints with that. You know, even Jewel Lloyd doing what
Yeah.
she's doing right now, as far as scoring the basketball in Seattle, she's on a tear and she's looking like
Mm-hmm.
a player that needs to be there with the Storm for a long period of time, similar to a guard who she held it down with in the backcourt for the first several years of her career in Sue Bird. So we'll see how that, you know, unfolds and the rest of the WNBA season unfolds as the summer, you know, moves along and carries on. But speaking of teams that are trying to go to the next level, as you brought up with the Aces, these NBA finals, we have a team in the Denver Nuggets that's trying to do that. Win their first championship in the history of their franchise, taking on a Miami Heat organization that's seeking to capture their fourth championship in the last 35 seasons. Nikola Jokic producing a triple-double out in the series opener, with Jamal Murray adding 26 and 10 to help lead the Nuggets to a 9-point win, or 11-point win at home in Denver's inaugural NBA Finals, dropping Miami to 1-6 all-time in game one of the NBA Finals. You had the Heat shoot less than 40% from beyond the arc on Thursday night. Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin, Max Strus shot 2 for 20 combined in that game one loss. However, they stormed back in game two, led behind the stellar player Gabe Vincent, who shot 8 for 12 from the floor, knocked down 4 for 6 of his shots from three-point land to finish the night with 23 points, 21 points apiece from Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler to help Miami overcome a 41-point, 11-rebound night from the Joker and rally all the way back from a double-digit deficit to lead the Rocky Mountains with a win for the first time since February of 2016 and draw even in this best-of-7 series, as the series now shifts over down to South Beach for game 3 set to go down Wednesday night. Jamal Murray, he's put up a double-double in his first 2 finals appearances. He chipped in with 18 and 10 in game 2. Miami, who shot 13 for 39 from three-point land as a team in game 1 of the NBA Finals, despite entering the series shooting close to 40% from three-point land. They shot an impressive 17 to 35 from long range in game 2. Vincent and Max Strus shot 8 for 16 combined from downtown on the night. Do you believe that we officially have a series? So many people, man, they thought, you know, midway through the second quarter when Denver went on that run in game 2 that we was looking at this series being a sweep. But it's not looking like that right now. What you think? Do we have a series?
Yeah, we got a series. Because Miami did the impossible. No one thought that Miami was going to win 1 or 2 games in Denver. That's the reality. And Miami has continued to show throughout these whole playoffs that when they put their minds to it, they can get the job done. That's just the franchise and the team that they are. And obviously they have the right staff and players to do it. Jimmy Butler knows what it's like to be in those moments, and he stepped up to the occasion from a leadership perspective. Eric Spoelstra, we've talked about all the time, best coach in basketball. Probably one of the most underappreciated coaches in basketball, but for sure showing why he's the best in the league. The adjustments that are being made, his coaching style, how he believes and gives confidence in his players to perform and have free reign, no restrictions, and puts them in a position to succeed on both ends of the floor. you got to tip your hat off to living up to the expectations of what it means to be in the NBA Finals, and the adjustments that were made on both sides of the floor. You know, you can tell that this has a chance to be a long series. Miami has the win that they didn't necessarily had to have, but it would be real nice to have in their back pocket. And by them getting that win, you're now going home and have a chance to defend home court and win the next 2 games. And I believe with the NBA Finals lineup changing, you get 3 straight home games in Miami before you go to Denver for the final 2 games. So if
that's the old way.
That's the old.
That's the old way. That's the 2-3-2.
Yeah, so
that's what they did when they wasn't able to fly commercial. Now they've gone back to the old school way that they did it prior to, I believe, 87 was the first year they did 2-3-2s. But they've gone back to 2-2-1-1-1. So it's still the same way. Like game 3 and 4 in Miami, games 5 and 7 will be in Denver. Game 6, which games 5 through 7, if necessary, game 6 will be in Miami. Yeah, the next 2, the old 2-3-2, it really would have been interesting.
Yeah, most definitely. But even then, it's still interesting now just because Miami has proven that it don't matter if it's a game 1, game 3, game 4, game 7. When we show up, they show up and they show out. And that's going to be a big test for Denver because Miami has been in this situation before. Denver's never been in the finals. Now, Denver has been playing like, you know, they should have been in the finals for a while, and they're real comfortable in the final state. But that's why this is a 7-game series, and that's why this is the first to 4, not the first to 3, or for the best of 3. So we got a series. We got a series to answer the question. We definitely have a series now. And if anything, game 2 showed that there's going to be this. The reason why there is going to be a series because of Miami being what we always know want Miami to be, a solid team that knows how to make proper adjustments and put themselves in the best positions to win and shine when the light shine brightest the most in the most pivotal situations, pivotal points of games.
I believe we had a series before the series started. I definitely believe that we have a series now. And I'm going to tell you why. It's the first time throughout the playoffs where we're going to see a Denver Nuggets team enter game 3 without holding a 2-0 series lead. And this was a team that was largely glossed over by a lot of people entering these playoffs. And they were regarded by many as the prohibited favorite to win this series, and rightfully so. They're the team with the most depth. They have a significant size advantage against Miami. But you pointed out something, and I'm glad you pointed that out because I think this is something that some casual basketball fans don't pay enough attention to. Adjustments. Game 1, Caleb Martin was starting at the 4 spot. Okay. He comes down. He gets a little sick, prior to game time. Plays 21 minutes, but he had to come off the bench. Inserted Kevin Love into his place in the starting lineup. And while Kevin Love didn't give them the offense necessarily, he gave them incredible defensive play, locking up in isolation situations against Michael Porter Jr. Okay. Finding a way to get back into the paint, flying around the floor and contesting a lot of Nuggets drives and shots inside the lane. That's what they needed. And most importantly, while he was doing that, he brought a level of physicality as well. They also made an adjustment in game 2, putting Jimmy Butler on the Jamal Murray. And that paid significant dividends. And the thing that a lot of these fans should really be scared of that thought that this was going to be a sweep is that we haven't even gotten a signature game from Jimmy Butler yet. But kudos to the Heat role players for stepping up in game 2, following some poor performances in game 1, such as Max Strus, who went 0 for 9 from 3-point land in game 1 and followed it up with knocking down 4 treys and shooting around 40% from beyond the arc. That was needed. And he said something in the midst of the game during like a interview on the sideline where he said, shooters shoot. He kept shooting. Miami got a bunch of good looks in game one offensively. They just weren't knocking them down. And that's why they weren't able to really make a significant run in a game in which Denver dominated, and they came out early seeking to attack the mismatches with guys like Aaron Gordon, who put up about 9 and 12 points real quick in that fourth quarter. I mean, that first quarter. You didn't see that. You didn't see that yesterday. But why? Because the Nuggets came out lethargic and the Heat threw the first punch, and they did it with their physicality on the defensive end, and they knocked down shots. And that bench, man, Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, these guys, man, have really shown an ability to step up and stay ready. And you know the old saying, when you stay ready, you don't got to get ready.
Ready, yeah.
And I definitely think that we have a series. And Jimmy Butler, like I said, he didn't have his best games. He looked like at certain points where his legs were shot. But in that fourth quarter, he had a couple of moments to help quell Denver's late run, hitting some big shots. I think he got a little too caught up with hunting fouls. But to answer the question, do we have a series? Hell yeah, we have a series. And I thought we had a series after game one. I thought that they made some solid adjustments. One thing I like with the zone defense in game two is that they took away the middle part of the floor from Jokic to operate.
Yep.
And they took away the paint. That was where they was putting him when they was playing them zones in the second and fourth quarter. Only thing I think Miami need to do for real is just find a way to stagger Bam's minutes with Jokic's. When Jokic sit, Bam need to sit. When Jokic is out, Bam need to be out there. Plain and simple. Because when Bam out, that defense, it collapses. And that's really when Denver been making their runs. But I definitely think we got a series.
Oh, yeah. You talk about the adjustments of the game. I thought it was also a strong adjustment from Miami's perspective. Is we know Miami, they have shooters. So they live by the three, you die by the three. But they did a very good job of attacking the paint when necessary to not just get the quality looks, but actually look to score in the paint, especially when Jokic is not on the floor. When they exploited that put pressure on Denver in ways where defensively they already had certain struggles, but it just exploited it that much more. And even on Denver's side, when you talk about the defense, there was way too many times where they didn't have much communication. Their shooters was wide open all over the place.
Yeah.
You had delayed pin downs. Duncan Robinson coming off a pin down, and you got two players following Duncan Robinson, leaving Gabe Vincent wide open for the 3-point jump shot in the corner. Like, granted, that was one of the rookie players that came off the bench, but at the end of the day, that's something that has to be cleaned up. Because one thing about Miami, as we know, when they get hot, they get hot. And that fire catches on to where you have to change your whole defense at times. And Miami is smart enough where they can exploit you not just on the outside, but they're going to get you on the inside as well, which is where Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo really kick in. Because when they start going into the paint and finishing around the paint, that opens the floor that much more to where you can get Bam Adebayo off of pick and roll situations. And he doesn't always he can work the float game. He can work the jump shot. You can have Jimmy Butler coming off those screens and shooting that pull up in that mid-range jumper with ease. It opens the game that much floor when you're able to execute in the paint realm in the way that Miami did in game two. So that's going to be key for them, especially in moments when Jokic is not on the floor. And Miami's defense per se, they just said, in game two, they said, Joker, you can do whatever you want. Score all the points you want. We'll eliminate everybody else. And they did a very good job of that, especially when you highlighted the mixing of the defenses with the 2-3 zone defense and everything. But even with the trapping, even with communicating well enough to where if you're going to switch on a pick and roll, the guards like Jamal Murray don't have room to breathe. Like they made it very difficult for their guard play and the wing play to really get comfortable on the perimeter. And that's something that if you want to keep this Denver team off your toes or keep them on their toes, you're going to have to be that aggressive 24/7 throughout the game. Miami has shown the blueprint of what it means to really beat a Denver Nuggets team. Can they keep it up for three more wins? Yeah, that's why it's the NBA Finals and it's a series like that. We'll soon to be find out. But they have provided a consistent blueprint now that other teams have failed in the Western Conference to do throughout this whole entire playoffs. And that's something that had the chance to scare Denver a little bit, considering that this is really the real competition that they've been playing against all throughout the playoffs.
And I'll tell you another thing that's got to scare Denver too. In the games in which Nikola Jokic has went off for 40 points or more, including his 50-plus point performance, I believe in Game 4 of the West Semis against Phoenix, they're 0-3. And I love, like I said, chess matches and adjustments. And I saw Miami Heat team in Game 1 get punched in the mouth by a Nugget squad that looked a lot fresher, but was doing something that their previous opponent didn't do too much of in the Boston Celtics. And they was moving that ball around. And that ball was generating a lot of synergy, and it was finding an open hand, and it was leading to a lot of clean three-point looks. And I felt like Miami needed a minute to get adjusted to what they were seeing. But nevertheless, they still had moments where they were in that ball game. They just wasn't hitting shots. Like you said, when you hitting shots, especially three-point shots, as many as these two teams are going to get up, especially Miami, because it's led to their success. You know, this was a team that was one of the least efficient three-point shooting teams as a team during the regular season, but they found a resurgence in these playoffs. Like, they need that. They need that. But then you brought up how they were attacking the rim, and it showed in the free throw numbers. They got to the line 20 times in Game 2. They only got to the line twice in Game 1. And that was early on in the first quarter because they weren't attacking the rim and they were settling for far too many threes. You saw a lot with misdirection handoffs and dribble handoffs with Bam Adebayo involving him. I thought that was great that they got him ingrained and more utilized in that. You saw more pick and roll actions that Miami was running, trying to make Jokic work a lot more as a defender, something they didn't do in Game 1. And then not only did you see that, but you also saw guys as a whole seeking to like play with confidence. You saw what good shooting could do for a team. And that's all Miami just had to do. I thought they was in Game 1. They had chances. They just didn't strike or capitalize, but they did in Game 2. But with that said, what changes do you expect to see made from both Mike Malone and Eric Spoelstra in a pivotal Game 3 down in Miami?
I think you brought up one of the points that I expected to take place is managing Bam's minutes better. Being able to recognize that when Jokic is out, you really don't have any other replacement that can guard Jokic at the best level possible outside of Bam. Bam is your best presence. So you got to protect him. And the best thing about Bam is he does play a role in your offense, but he's not your end all be all options. He's not one of those dire options on your offense, at least in the early points of the game. So you can be able to bench him when Joker is benched. You can able to give him the rest that he needs, so that way when Joker comes back in, he can come back in very very fresh enough to play him. I think that's going to be ideal for Miami when you're talking about trying to maintain the presence of Jokic and what he could bring to the table and keep maintaining your minutes of your best defender as well. But even on Denver's side, Michael Porter Jr. got to show up. I think that's the biggest thing at this point, because Jamal Murray, we know what he can do, and he's shown that put him in the right moments in the right situation, he's gonna do it. He's shown that he'll do it throughout this whole playoffs. But Michael Porter Jr., he's a. I don't want to make this as a bad comparison because I know talent-wise he probably is better, but he's a taller version of J.R. Smith. He's a streaky shooter, and when he gets you going, he gets you going. But when he doesn't, his problem is he will shoot you out of the game. He does not know how to play outside of not shooting the ball. So if Michael Porter Jr. is not careful and Denver's not careful, Michael Porter Jr. can shoot Denver out of competing in a game. And that's something that they have to monitor. And Michael Porter Jr. has to learn how to adjust his game. And I think that's the best chance that Denver's going to have. I think that's one of the best chances Denver is going to have to keep themselves in games like that. Because when Michael Porter Jr. isn't shooting, you got to hope Jamal Murray has a big time or Aaron has a big time game, or other reinforcements like Bruce Brown and Aaron Gordon show up to cover for that lapse. But Michael Porter Jr. is that third option on that offense. And if he's not shining when he needs to shine, oftentimes Denver struggles. And that's something that Denver has to be mindful of because they struggled mightily in game 2 when Michael Porter wasn't hitting his shots. And it was so bad to a point that when they had a chance to come back, Michael Porter Jr. prevented them from having to come back because of the fact that he was shooting so much. And yeah, shooters shoot, but he was shooting themselves out of the games at times. So I think those are the two biggest things for me on the outside looking in right now that, that since we haven't highlighted yet compared to the previous conversation, that really needs to be addressed for either team to improve their chances of winning. But Miami's in a good spot because they won a game on the road which no one expected. So Miami just needs to maintain what they need to maintain in these next two home court games. But Denver's good on the road too. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, and I think the reason why no one expected the Heat to win in Denver because Denver was unbeaten in these playoffs at home prior to losing in game 2.
Yep.
And they hadn't lost a game at home, I believe, since March the 30th in the regular season. So like they was riding real hot at the Ball Arena prior to Sunday evening. And you bring up Michael Porter Jr. needing to step it up. I got the numbers in front of me. Even though he had a double-double outing in game 1 where he scored 14 points and he hauled down 13 rebounds to go alongside of 2 blocks, had some impressive defensive stretches as well in game 1. He shot 5 for 16 from the floor and 2 for 11 from three-point land. And that was one of the main talking points after game 1 is how the Nuggets were able to dominate the Heat in spite of not really shooting the ball at the clip that we have become so accustomed to seeing them do from three-point land through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs when they were playing against their Western Conference foes en route to the championship round. But then he follows that up with going 2 for 8 from the floor in game 2, and he shot 1 for 6 from three-point land, scoring only 5 points with 6 rebounds. So overall, through the first 2 games, of the NBA Finals this year, Michael Porter is shooting 3 for 17 from downtown, and he's shooting 7 for 24 from the floor. That's not good. That's not good. And he is the third option, and he's a guy that's going to have to step it up alongside of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Yeah.
Who made some bonehead decisions as a defender that I'm not really accustomed to seeing from him.
Right.
And he didn't really keep his discipline in a few stretches, like fouling Kyle Lowry on a shot in which he was really bailing the defense out late in the shot clock. That wasn't good. And he struggled thus far in spite of, some stellar play defensively in game 1. He's only scored 13 points through the first 2 games of this series. And you compare that to his last 2 games in the Western Conference Finals when he scored in double figures with 17 in game 3 and 13 in game 4 against the Lakers, culminating in a sweep in that series. So, yeah, those guys have to step up. And I think one of the adjustments I think that Mike Malone is gonna have to make is just getting these guys right mentally, man. I thought they came in the game too as if it was a regular season game. Charles Barkley talked
Yeah,
about
he
that on
said
the
that.
NBA TV postgame show, and
Yep.
he was right. You know, like they didn't come in with that energy as though, hey, like we could put our foot on these guys' necks. And I think they wasted a key opportunity, man, especially with the way in which the rookie guards such as Christian Brown was playing, and that second unit with Jeff Green and those guys, like they helped them get that double-digit lead in the midway point of that second quarter. And that crowd was in the game, and it forced Spo to call a timeout. And it looked like for a while, like, man, you know, if Miami don't cut this lead, they looking at a rough go, you know, because if you can't take care of these next two games and you go down 2-0, it's looking ugly. But that wasn't the case. So I mean, this team got to learn, man, real quick, that if you want to really wear that championship crown, you're gonna have a heavy head to do it. And Mike Malone got to make sure that these guys are right. As far as with Eric Spoelstra, I think he's going to continue with the 2-3 zone. I don't think we're going to see Tyler or Cody Zeller, excuse me. I don't think we're going to see Cody Zeller playing in too many, you know, games in the near future, especially with the eventual return of Tyler Hero being on the horizon. I think you might see him play a little bit small in some stretches whenever Denver's not seeking to go big with Jokic. I think you're going to see Jimmy Butler flying around, not just on Jamal Murray, but even during certain stretches with Aaron Gordon. I mean, he's going to continue to make adjustments. And I hope that Denver is paying attention to how Spoelstra is utilizing this 2-3 zone, man, because if you notice, he going to it immediately as soon as the second quarter start and as soon as the fourth quarter start. He's going back and forth between man and zone in between quarters. So those are some changes I expect to see, but not too many. But this is like, I want to get into Denver real quick. Like I said earlier, it's the first time in these playoffs that they're entering game 3 without holding a 2-0 lead in the series. Do you believe that this Denver squad, a team that we questioned prior to even getting to this point, whether or not they would be here, but they're here now. Do you believe that this Nugget squad has the mental resolve as a team to overcome their first true test when it comes to dealing with adversity this postseason, man? Because we know Miami done been through a lot. You know, they had to go through hell and back just to get the 8th seed.
Yeah.
They had to beat the best team record-wise in the regular season just to get past round 1 in the Milwaukee Bucks. Had to go through New York with Butler hurt. You know, and then coming back to win game 7 on the road after the Celtics tried to come back from a 3-0 series deficit. What you think about Denver and their mental resolve? Do they have enough?
I will say, I'm not going to say they don't have enough, but I will say is it's going to be a lot tougher than they think. And this is why. Because you just mentioned just within this playoff run alone how much Miami has gone through. And that's not even including, you know, the bubble experience.
Absolutely.
And that sort. So they've always been battle tested every year, and they've always shown up every year. Even though Denver does have the bubble experience, which was really the coming out party for Jamal Murray and the whole and that Denver-led squad, and they do have some championship DNA on their team with, you know, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, some good playoff experience with like the DeAndre Jordans of and such.
Jeff Green
for sure, but it's different when you already have that in your back pocket and there's been a gap. Because all season long, they've really coasted as the top seed in the West. There was really no competition for them throughout the regular season. And then you coast in the way that you did with this playoff run, beating, pretty much sweeping. You swept Minnesota.
Gentleman style. They got him in 5 games. Anthony Edwards stole a game from him.
Right.
They got him gentleman style.
gentleman sweep. You got, and then you pretty much do the same thing with Phoenix, and you completely sweep LA. So it's like you playing against a team that has been battle tested, not just with the bubble, but obviously with throughout this playoff run as well, and previous years. Because we got to be mindful that I believe this is the third or fourth time they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals in the past like 5 years.
This is that they've been the Heat have been the 3 Eastern Conference Finals through the first 4 years of the Jimmy Butler era.
Yeah,
and this is their second finals in the last 4 seasons in the Jimmy Butler era. Who they happen to go to the finals with his first season in Miami, which was the bubble year.
Right. So just off of that time alone, this is the closest Denver's ever actually gotten throughout that period to a finals. They only went to the Western Conference Finals, I think, one time throughout that whole stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Miami's been to the Eastern Conference Finals, as you just mentioned, at least 2 to 3 times already, not including this year. So Denver's going to be tested in a lot of ways. And the biggest one is going to be mental, because this is their first real experience of what it means to be in the finals and know what it takes to win a finals. But what I think really separates the two is, as much as I respect Mike Malone and he is for sure one of the top coaches in the NBA, he knows what it takes to get there as an assistant, but he's never won it as a head coach. This is his first real experience. Eric Spoelstra has been in the NBA Finals plenty of times and won plenty of times in that seat. And he has shown that it doesn't matter who's on the roster, he wins with that roster. So because of that experience and that exposure in ways that Mike Malone doesn't have, as much as we talk about this being a player's matchup situation, this is really a coach's matchup situation. And because of that, that's where I think the biggest thing is gonna come into play. So yeah, Denver, they may have the player personnel to get them there, but the coaching aspect is going to come into question. And that is going to be the difference maker between Denver winning and Denver losing when you talk about in comparison to what's on the other side in the 305. That's a completely different type of culture there. And that is why I'm not going to count Denver out. But I am going to answer your question, I'm not going to count them out and say they're not battle tested, but it's not at the level as Miami has. And that may be the deciding factor as to who wins this finals.
And that's why I was posing that question to you, bro, like whether or not they had the mental resolve as a team to overcome this, because this is really their first true test in these playoffs. I'm not saying that Denver isn't a battle-tested squad. This is a team that has been without Jamal Murray in their last 2 playoff runs prior to this season. Yep. And if you think about it, when they have had Jamal Murray the last 4 years, they've happened to go on deep playoff runs, such as the Western Conference Finals appearance in 2020 down in the bubble of Orlando, and then this year advanced into the NBA Finals. But I feel like it's a legit question to ask, because they're going up against a veteran-laden Miami Heat team who, as Gabe Vincent told Shaq in the post-game show on NBA TV after game 2, we don't give a damn about being the favorite or what, everybody and their mom got to say about us being the underdog in this series. We just trying to get the 4 wins first. Like, he put it out there flat, blunt, and simple, the way I appreciate statements in this day and age. Like, he said, we don't give a damn. So when I hear stuff like that, and I'm looking at this Denver squad, who, in spite of having a leader like Nikola Jokic, is 27 years old, soon to be 28, and even though they got vets that have championship experience and playing on this stage, man, like, it is. If they can overcome this, it'll be a nice diamond or notch to put in their belt. I tell you that much, because this is a test for them. I don't care how you want to put it. They've gone up into each series in game 3 up 2-0. And even though they dropped 2 games against Phoenix in games 3 and 4 out in Phoenix, I don't think it was really too much doubt in their mind that they couldn't take care of business against Phoenix, especially at home, where that altitude holds such an overwhelming advantage, sometimes mentally more than physically, on their opponents. So we'll see. But I want to move on and discuss Miami right now. Caleb Martin, a guy who was a big part of the Heat's run in the Eastern Conference Finals, dethroning the Boston Celtics in Game 7. He was unable to start in Game 2, as I mentioned earlier, due to illness, but he managed to come off the bench for Miami, played 21 minutes. He was said to be sitting with a towel over his head after the game in front of his locker by NBA TV's Jerry Greenberg. Martin, according to Greenberg, told him that he's been in the midst of suffering with some migraines and cold chills, non-COVID related, but is probably in need of the next couple of days off, with Game 3 being on Wednesday night. Kevin Love replaced Caleb Martin in the lineup, proved to be very helpful. Do you think that Eric Spoelstra should stick with Kevin Love in the starting 5 for Game 3? We know in this day and age, it's always a tinkering of some sort that a head coach is seeking to experiment with on a game-by-game basis when it comes to his starting 5 lineup or his rotation this time of year. Do you think he should stick with it? I personally believe he should. What do you say to that?
I mean, I think he should keep the window open, like Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak leave the door open. Silk Sonic, shout out to Silk Sonic. They should leave the door open a little bit to allow Caleb Martin to come back to that starting lineup. But I'm at the point where right now, until Denver proves that they can stop what you put out there, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they struggled in making it work with Kevin Love or playing or how to play Kevin Love. And that's the best thing that Miami could have right now, because you know what you're getting with Kevin Love. You're getting a championship caliber player. You're getting still a solid presence from the 3-point line and in the paint. And you're getting someone who has that high IQ and has shown improvement. He may not be the best defender, but put him in the moments when you need him the most, he will defend. And he will do a good job at it. So because of that, and I honestly think putting Kevin Love in the lineup actually alleviates pressure on Bam on the offensive side, which allows Bam to focus more defensively on Joker, and you saw what that looks like. So yeah, stick to what you know, and what you know right now Kevin Love is a pretty positive X factor to the direction of where your team is going, and he has shown that, you know, his is not just veteran presence from a talent perspective, but from a winning perspective, knowing what it takes to win a championship and have won championship and been in multiple NBA finals. This dude knows what it takes to get the job done, and Miami knows exactly what that looks like too. So it's a perfect marriage right now that could not come at any better time, especially when you consider the fact that in these playoffs, as of recent, Kevin Love didn't really start any of the previous games up until Game 2, because of the playoff, because of that. So he knows, you know, having that ready player mentality, ready to go mentality that we talked about earlier in the show, is paying his dividends for him. And you know, it will continue to pay its dividends for Miami up until Denver has to show them that we know we have a solution to this problem you're presenting to us. And that's when I think you make the switch.
Oh yeah, I agree. You know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And then, you know, even though he only had 6 points, I think where he helped him the most was on the glass.
Yeah.
And that's what we know Kevin Love to do. You know, in his prime, he's one of the elite rebounders in the game. He hauled down 10 rebounds, man. And then if you getting offense on top of what he's providing for you defensively right now, then yeah, it doesn't take away from Caleb Martin's role now. He's still going to be an impactful and vital presence in this series, even with the insertion of a Tyler Herro, who was ruled out by the Heat in game 2 of the NBA Finals, but is said to be on the mend. He's progressing well from the broken right hand he suffered a month ago during Miami's opening round series against the Milwaukee Bucks in game 1. The team is yet to make a decision on his status for game 3, although recent reports have indicated that the former Sixth Man of the Year recipient could indeed be back for that game as the series makes its way back to the 305. What do you expect for Hero's role to be on this current Heat squad? As we have seen it, should he indeed make his return to action in these finals? I think he'll be pivotal in the standpoint that he will help spot Jimmy Butler, giving him another ball handler and a shot creator on the floor. But I think he's going to be coming off the bench, because when you got this team humming like they are right now, you can't be switching up things too much. And I still think Caleb Martin has a presence on this squad, man, that's good enough to where if Spo wanted to keep Martin in the lineup, help permitting and everything, he could easily go back to that. But like Hero to me is the sixth man in limited quantity, depending on how you want to play things offensively as well as defensively. But he is of need, and his shooting will be of need in this series as well whenever he does return.
100% everything you said, man. I completely agree with that. And you talk about quantity. You also want quality when you haven't played over a month or some change in the basketball game as pivotal as this. So yeah, I believe he's gonna come off the bench. I believe he's gonna play in a very limited role, of course, minutes wise. But those minutes are pivotal, especially compared to possibly giving Jimmy Butler a break where he doesn't have to handle the ball. Like you mentioned, he can handle the ball a little bit. And Tyler Hero actually gets to come into a sweet situation because you don't have to ask him for much. All you got to do is just say, hey, when you get in the game, play the game that you love to play, but just be solid. You ain't got to turn the ball over. You ain't got to do the most. Obviously, shoot it when you see the opportunity to shoot it, and just play sound defense. Because you built enough trust, and Eric Spoelstra has built enough trust in the likes of a Caleb Martin. So that way, when he comes in, he can fill in those voids and also make Tyler Hero's transition that much easier. So I think that's the best way you go about it. You're humming on a good thing right now. Don't kill that vibe. And there's no point in doing that. Don't kill the vibe. Let's let that chemistry continue to roll on down, and then you smoothly, easily put Tyler Hero in the right situations possible, without overloading his minutes and overloading him from a conditioning standpoint as well. So that way he can still play solid basketball. And when you need him, you can really put him in. But when you don't, you just use that to work that in, knowing you got Caleb Martin coming back that can be an easy plug-in, and has shown that given the right amount of minutes and time and opportunities, he will make you pay. He'll make those opportunities pay off.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Like when I look at the situation with him, it's of course you worry about his conditioning because he has been off a month. That's a significant layoff, even though he broke his hand, his shooting hand, might I add. Mm-hmm. Defensively, I have some concerns. I won't lie. I think they may have to hide him a little bit, but I think having key help side defenders beside him, such as a Bam or Kevin Love in the interior, that'll be helpful in easing his return into the lineup, but which I'm eager to see because it gives Miami another three-point shooter, and a three-point shooter who's been arguably their best one the last 4 years since coming into the league, besides Jimmy Butler out of Kentucky. But I want to discuss Miami's run in full perspective, man, because I didn't get a chance to do this last week, and I meant to ask you this last week on our show here on Open Run. This team posted a 53-29 record last year. They regressed mightily this year, finishing with a 44-38 record during the regular season to mark their worst campaign since the 2018-19 season. They finished dead last in points per game and were the only team among the 16 teams to qualify for this year's playoffs with a negative point differential. As we all know, The road was tough. They had to go through 2 play-in games to extend their season, losing the first one at the hands of the Atlanta Hawks, narrowly escaping against the Bulls to earn the 8th seed outright in the Eastern Conference playoffs. They defeated the Bucks, the Knicks, overcame the Boston Celtics. Have they shown us that the regular season doesn't matter as it once did? Because this team just captured their 7th win after trailing by 10 plus points in the playoffs in game 2 of the finals. That ties last year's Warriors squad, including the 11 and 12 Heat squads led by LeBron, Chris Bosh, and D Wade for the most wins in that following scenario during the playoffs over the last quarter century.
No, because everybody in Miami. Miami has, this, I say the quote all the time, there's levels to this. Miami knows what it means over time to build a culture to where, pretty much to a point where it doesn't matter who's on the roster, they just get the job done. Yeah, they have ups and downs for sure, but they get the job done. And this year, they had a lot of ups and downs. Injuries played the biggest factor. And with those injuries, it kind of, held the Heat back a little bit from winning games. And normally they most likely would have won. But just like any other team, and any other playoff team, when everybody comes back healthy at the right time, you all start clicking at the right time, things begin to flow. And that's the best time for you to play basketball when it comes to the playoffs. And that's what Miami, did this year. Any team can technically do that, but the problem is the Miami Heat are a championship cultured franchise. You can't say the same thing if you put the Bulls in that situation. You can't say the same thing if you put like another team, like even the Brooklyn Nets in that situation. You can't guarantee the Atlanta Hawks are going to do the same. You can't guarantee the Knicks are going to do the same. Like, there's levels of what it means to win and do it at such a level to where you can't be looked at as a team that's automatically you can just count out every time. That's Miami. You know that you're pretty much in a dogfight with Miami no matter what, because that's the makeup of Miami. That's what makes the Heat the Heat. You can't say that for every other team. So this year, Miami is doing the anomaly because we know Miami can do the anomaly. That's what they're built for. Not every team is built like Miami. And because of that, that's what makes this franchise unique. And that's what makes this run so unique. Because if you really want to put all the bottom teams that they played against and ended throughout if they could have gone against them in the regular season, you put all those teams together, who was the best chance that you could say coming out of that was going to have a chance to go to the NBA Finals? The Miami Heat. Nobody else. So, no, it doesn't change the fact that the regular season doesn't matter. Because reality is it does. Especially if you don't have the makeup of a team in every aspect like the Miami Heat do. That's where you're going to get yourself in trouble.
So do you believe, with all of that said, Josh and Will said, do you believe that we'll see similar situations down the road in which a number 8 seed goes from the play-in round to on the verge of a championship like this one? I don't, but I do believe that teams like the Heat show that the play-in has power.
Yeah.
Because in some ways, this is kind of like, it's kind of like seeing a wild card team in baseball, which happens often, win the World Series, as opposed to the division winning squad. And even though the Miami Heat aren't your traditional underdog, I mean, hell, they was the number 1 overall seed in the East just a season ago. I can't help but look at this in a way that to say like it's quite remarkable because it doesn't happen that often. Like, do you think we're gonna see this again?
I don't. I don't think we're gonna see it again per se. The play-in definitely helps to make it more possible from an opportunity and chance perspective. But for me, it really has to depend on the makeup of the team. And every team is not with the championship DNA that the Miami Heat have. No matter what talent roster you have on the talent, on your roster, if you're not able to perform and have the mentality to perform every night, that the Miami Heat have been known to do for years, not just this season, but for years. I can't say that every team that gets put in that situation moving forward is going to have that same approach. It's just not reality. So because of that, I think their chances can be increased of that 8th seed having a Cinderella story, going over to the NBA Finals and potentially winning it all, for sure. But in the NBA league that is predicated on the best of the best winning, and for the most part, the best of the best that do win is a top team, it's going to be hard to see that happen again. See what Miami's doing? It's going to be hard to see that again, especially since a lot of teams are not made in the way that Miami has for all these years to come.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I still think the regular season matters. I don't care what anybody says. I think it matters. I think the Heat just caught fire at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a team that I think a lot of people, including myself, we just overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
We thought because of the dominance that we saw in Milwaukee, that Milwaukee would just be able to coast through and win in 5 games. Now, granted, injuries played a role in that series. Not only to Tyler Herro, but Giannis Antetokounmpo, who missed the first 3 games of that series after going down in game 1. Actually missed games 2 and 3, excuse me. He didn't miss the first 3, but he missed games 2 and 3. Tried to come back in game 4, but he was limited in a lot of ways, as well as in game 5, despite some impressive showings. Like a lot had to go right in order for them to get here, and matchup wise as well. Like we gave Milwaukee the benefit of the doubt against Miami because they were a proven championship winner, something that we hadn't seen Miami do. But I think a lot of us forget in the bubble, who did Miami beat to get to the Eastern Conference Finals that year in the Eastern Conference semifinals? The Milwaukee Bucks, who had pretty much the same core group of guys that they had this go round, minus Drew Holiday, who was the addition to the fray. Mm-hmm. But I'm not gonna say that the regular season doesn't matter or that they've shown us that it doesn't, but I do think that it goes to show how if you have a team that's talented, a team that doesn't care what everybody else thinks, a team that has several players with a chip on their shoulder that is willing and ready to prove their worth at all costs, that anything can happen. And this year's Miami Heat team is the epitome of that. You got guys like Gabe Vincent, undrafted out of Santa Barbara, who was known as a scorer, transformed himself into a solid 2-way guard,
mm-hmm.
who is about to make a lot of money this upcoming offseason. Max Strus, a guy we know very well, DePaul ties, local kid, had only one Division I offer coming out of high school. Decided to go D2 to Lewis before he went to DePaul. Made a name for himself there. Tried to get on with the Bulls. Didn't work. Tried to get on with the Celtics. Didn't work. Takes a training camp deal in Miami. Plays himself into a 2-way contract. Now he's looking like one of the top sharpshooters on the wing in the league. Playing on the biggest stage of the NBA Finals. Like, man, they got guys that want it. They got guys that want it. Bam Adebayo was a guy, even though he's a 5-star recruit, wasn't given everything. He had a lot of questions about him. A lot of guys thought, well, he's just an athletic guy. You can't win with this guy. Solid defender. He won't really evolve as a playmaker. Like they've had like Jimmy Butler. A lot of dudes counted Jimmy Butler. We know his story very well as well. Having Chicago ties, being a former Bull. Like I've been fascinated with this run. I don't think we will see it again. I think it's a reason why it took almost 25 years to see it again, because it doesn't happen that often.
Right.
And, you know, that's all I have to really say on that. But I want to move on away from the NBA Finals, getting into this NBA head coaching carousel, man. Monty Williams and the Detroit Pistons agree in principle to a 6-year, $72 million deal to become the franchise's new head coach, and a deal that could climb all the way up to $100 million if incentives and options are triggered. To quote the great Chris Rock, good Lord, that's a lot of money, especially for a head coach. Josh, what are your thoughts on this bold move by the Pistons, who, after being turned down by Monty Williams on their initial offer, they finally landed by making him a Godfather level offer that he just could not refuse, in spite of the reports from Brian Windhorst of ESPN stating that he was considering taking a year off to spend time with his family?
This is what desperation looks like. I mean, at the end of the day, the Detroit Pistons are in complete rebuild. They've been rebuilding for years, and they have not gotten to a point where they can be a dominant presence in the Eastern Conference. And the reality is they needed a coach that can do that. Dwayne Casey was a great bridge, but we already knew his winning was already limited because of what he did in Toronto. They couldn't get over the Eastern Conference Finals hump. It took Nick Nurse to get them to the finals. So because of that, with Dwayne Casey in a rebuild, it just did not work. And you need someone who is attached to winning, recent winning on top of that, and, knows how to not only work with young players, but also be a good enough coach to recruit stars to come there, be an attraction to help make this situation there attractable enough for a star to consider. And that's what Monty Williams can do. You saw what he did in Phoenix. Phoenix was at the bottom. And then, he said, okay, Devin Booker's here. I'll work with Devin Booker. Oh yeah, by the way, give me my man, Chris Paul. I can work with him. And you get Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and Devin Booker, and you build around that to become a championship contender. It's possible. But for Monty Williams to go to Detroit, where they haven't done any type of meaningful winning pretty much since the 04-05 era of the Detroit Pistons, bad boy Pistons. I mean, yeah, if I'm Monty Williams, I ask for that type of deal too. Because look what you're putting me into. Look at the situation you got me in. Especially since you got Jaden Ivey over there now, Katie Cunningham, who struggles to stay healthy, and you have a plethora of big men that you don't know which one you want to use. I mean, you got to figure out what you have, and that's going to take more than 1 year to figure that out. So, if you want to get the best of the best, you're going to have to spend the checkbook. You gotta bring it. And clearly that's enough for Monty Williams to do that and secure his future. I looked at this as like what the Oakland Raiders did with John Gruden. They were completely off the grid, and they say, okay, we need to be relevant again. How can we be relevant? Let's go get the guy that we was winning Super Bowls with. John Gruden, come on over. And they gave him a huge 10-year, $100 million deal to leave ESPN to try to bring relevancy back to the Oakland / quote unquote Las Vegas Raiders. That's what Detroit had to do to make themselves relevant again. And this, to me, considering that all the coaches that were out there, this was the best deal for them. That was the best option. They won for it, they swung, and they hit the home run. Now it's a matter of what they do with the franchise moving forward to bring the talent needed for a caliber winning coach like Monty Williams to go to work with.
When I first saw this news, I was like, what else Monty got to do to get this bread? Like, he got to play the 3-2 or something? Like, you don't see this happening on a regular basis. And for those who don't know, Monty Williams was a former player in the league before he became a head coach.
Right.
Like the type of money he getting, you see a lot of role players getting these type of deals now. You know, and I was like, damn, that's a real bold move. But I gotta give the owner, Tom Gores, credit. He was rejected with the first offer, but he was hell-bent on getting his man. And I don't believe that Monty asked for that as much as I believe Tom Gores saying, you know what? I'm just not losing this guy.
Yep.
What's your price? Because whatever it is, I need you. I need you. I need your ties to USA Basketball. I need your ties to the level of talent that you have the fortunate pleasure of having coached in this league. From Kevin Durant prior to him going to Phoenix and Oklahoma City, Chris Paul prior to going to Phoenix. Like, he has great relationships with guys across this business of basketball.
Yep.
From players to front office executives, GMs, the whole nine. This was Detroit's way of saying, you know what? We want to not only be relevant, but we want to win again. And we want to win so bad that we would like to give you an offer that you just can't refuse. We know that your family is nice and that sitting in the shade for a year could do you some good, but like, we got some young pieces here in Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham that need to take that next step. We got a Jalen Duran here who was named to the all-rookie team, who's a very talented and promising young center. And even though we got a log jam at that spot, we also got James Wiseman over here. Like, how would a big check, you know, to be here for the next decade look? Hey, I ain't even signed it, and it looked lovely to me. And it looked even more lovely when you consider that Monty Williams, in spite of his great resume, is getting a Godfather level deal at a time period in which the top minds in the game, such as Steve Kerr, who's at Golden State, and Eric Spoelstra, who's down in Miami coaching in these finals, they both only have 1 year left on their current contracts and are said to make around $8 million annually as of this moment, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, better known as Woj to the people at ESPN. Like, how do you believe that this contract is going to affect NBA head coaching as far as the economy goes for NBA head coaches in future years to come? Because I think this is about to get like real ugly. I think we finna start seeing some coaches that's currently under contract trying to figure out ways to get out their contracts to go to another organization that's willing to give them more dollars for an extended period of time. Because Monty Williams, if he had his way, I don't think he really was trying to go to Detroit. He wasn't checking for them, but they was like, hey, we got you. We got some young talent over here that you need to work with, and we think you could take to the promised land. Either way, whether it work or not, he getting paid. And that ain't even combining the money that he getting from Phoenix still.
Right. You talk about how, you know, coaches are looking to line themselves up in a perfect situation where they can get out of their current contracts, and then, you know, try to get their own version of what a home run deal would look like. As interesting as that probably is going to happen, I also have reservations, because look at the coaching carousel in this, and within this decade alone, you have coaches that have long-term deals that sometimes don't make it past that third season. So from an owner's perspective, if I'm an owner, yeah, I'm getting pissed too. Because what if I sign this guy to the same contract you did Monty Williams, and we lose and we have 3 straight losing seasons. Or for some reason, we get in there, but we ain't getting the job done. Monty Williams is getting a hand on getting a slap, and Detroit doesn't look promising to win right now. You think I'm gonna give you $100 million expecting you to win right now, and you can't win? That's a problem.
They say it could go up to 100 million. See, that's the thing.
Right.
Like he getting 72 for 6, but it could go up to 100 with incentives. Like if he goes past year 6, so he's gonna have every incentive to get this thing right. They made it clear that, but and I agree. I don't expect the Detroit Pistons to just automatically ascend up to the point where they are in the play-in come year 1 or year 2 of the Monty Williams era. I still think they need a few years. Right. They got some pieces, they got some talent. And I think they're in a better spot than a team that plays in this city, for damn sure. But man, I don't know. Like this like it's been reported that Steve Kerr and Eric Spoelstra, according to Woj, could make $20 million a year after this contract.
I mean, but this is where, to me, when I think about, there's levels to this, right? Monty Williams, as great as a coach as he is, has not won a title.
Exactly. That's my point.
You're talking about Steve Kerr and Eric Spoelstra. They should be at the table and say, you see what they just gave this guy? He ain't win no championships.
That's what I'm saying.
I got y'all 4 each. I got y'all 3 to 4 each. Come on. That's why I said, like, owners gonna be pissed, because Monty Williams set a precedent, which rightfully so. Get paid, brother. I honestly think he deserves it, especially considering the coaches and the coaching carousel that's been going on in Detroit. That's the best coach you probably had since Larry Brown, straight up. So because of that, yeah, run me my bag to rehabilitate and revive a literally completely dying franchise. Cool, I'll do that. But when you talk about other teams that have not had that type of coaching pedigree, that may have that, and even teams like Golden State and Miami, who have the coaches, they're going to have to get more than what Monty just got. Easy. Because there's winning that's attached to them. And it's done, and it's not just like they just have one championship. They're dynasties here. They have 3 to 4 championships on their resume. And don't let Spo win this finals. Oh, that's the icing on the cake. You're talking about the last 2 NBA finals being won by top-tier coaches. I mean, it's going to get crazy. It's going to get crazy.
And not only top-tier head coaches, excuse me for cutting you up, not only top-tier head coaches, 2 of the 3 longest tenured head coaches in the NBA, besides Greg Popovich, who's been sitting in San Antonio for over a quarter century, and he's sitting on what? 5 championships?
5.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I brought this up, because I know that these coaches that make up the triangle, as I call it, and Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, and Eric Spoelstra, especially with them both having only 1 year left on their current deals, going into next year being the last year of the deal, they looking for that paper, especially if Monty just got $12 million per year.
Yeah, that's why. I just hope that Monty Williams is so generous enough to come 4 hours a little south to Chicago and give us at least give me a little bit of that chump change, man. That's all I ask, man. A little chump change. I'll take 100,000, whatever. It works for me. You're getting $12 million a year over Detroit, and I won't be surprised too if he's not just coaching. Like, he's gonna have some type of written language to where he can have some front office input too. I would not be surprised if that's the case. And if he does have that, hey, that's nice. It's real nice.
I mean, for the money he's getting, I don't even think you have to really care about the title that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, that could come along if he goes past year 6 or 7 and he's built something that's so luxurious there to where you're making Detroit, Michigan a place that's attractive enough for free agents across the league and young players. Because I've been to games in Little Caesars Arena. It's a nice arena, downtown Detroit, sitting off Woodward Avenue, right on the same side as the Fox Theater, the iconic Fox Theater in downtown Detroit. You know, all their teams play within a close proximity to one another. The Tigers at Comerica, Lions at Ford Field, like they got their own little complex there. And they need a winner, and I'll admit it, the city deserves a winner. They do. But man, I was taken aback by that. I don't know how the Monty Williams era goes in Detroit, but I tell you one thing. This the most buzz that the Pistons have had as far as national press goes in quite some time. And if Tom Gores is willing to pay for that, I can't wait to see what free agents he may be willing to put top dollars on should the Pistons do what so many of us expect them to do now that they have last year's recipient of the Coach of the Year award in tow.
I just want some of that chump change. That's all I said.
I get it.
I just want a little bit of that chump change, man. You can write the check out to me. I'll give you the address. Hell, I'll even give you the account number. You can just deposit that mug. You can wire deposit that mug on my account. We ain't gotta worry about it, man. We'll make it real seamless.
Well, you know, in other news across the head coaching carousel, Suns finalized a 5-year deal to hire Frank Vogel, former coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, who led the Lakers to their championship down in the bubble just 3 years ago. They also retained their top assistant coach, Kevin Young, on their staff, who was a finalist for the head coaching job in Phoenix, also hiring former Knicks and Grizzlies head coach, David Fizdale, at the top of this week to come over from Utah after being in an assistant GM role under Danny Ainge in that front office. What are your thoughts on Phoenix hiring Frank Vogel to replace Monty Williams, who, as we talked about just a moment ago, is now in the Motor City?
Shocking. I considered it shocking because I would think they would go after at least someone who is. I mean, when I say this, I'm not trying to like bash anybody, but this a much more recent track record with winning and consistent playoff bursts. Frank Vogel, as great as a defensive coach as he is known, and yes, he has a championship to go with it, next to LeBron, which is quite telling. What happened in the final years after he won that championship? The franchise, they crescendoed, they deteriorated, they got worse. Now some of it obviously is on front office management and getting the players that they need, LeBron aging, all that. But at the end of the day, he couldn't keep them afloat. You do have on the other end, if you wanted to go completely fresh, you do have Kenny Atkinson, who was with the Warriors and knows what it takes to, win a championship with them. So he knows what it means to win championships. He would have been a decent option, somewhat decent option. But at the same time, you also got my Budenholzer. And I was surprised my Budenholzer didn't go as far as he did with that, because as much as we criticize his lack of adjustments at times, and his coaching decisions, he did coach Giannis to a championship, and he did it in a time where Milwaukee was never viewed as a championship contender until that pairing became. So he knows how to work with franchises that haven't won to get them to winning championships. And I think because of that could go a long way in the situation with Phoenix, where Phoenix might have had the coach, they just didn't have all the talent to put it together just yet. Now they got everything. Now, if my Budos were coming there, that's everything at his disposal. But it was shocking. To me, it was shocking. I guess I shouldn't say it wasn't really surprising with the shock, but I'm just interested to see. I just would have never guessed in my lifetime Frank Vogel will coach LeBron James and Kevin Durant. I just would not put those two together.
Budenholzer, I thought, would be the favorite. I honestly thought he would. And I thought he would be the favorite, not only with his resume, but he's an Arizona native.
Mm-hmm.
And having ties to that area, I thought he would definitely be attracted to the job, being a guy that's from the state, coming back home, trying to guide the franchise down in the desert to his first championship in the history of the franchise. But I'm not going to knock the Frank Vogel move, because when you got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, you're going to have a top 10 offense. Mm-hmm. That's a given. That's a given. Phoenix has always had great offenses. But what has always cost Phoenix in key spots and situations? They defense.
Yep.
Frank Vogel is a great defensive tactician. And one thing I got to give Frank Vogel, at least over his last couple stops, he's had some great coaching staffs.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that they were able to retain Kevin Young, adding David Fizdale.
Yeah.
That's nice too. A guy who has been away from the sideline in a different role over the last couple of years, doing some TV as well. I'm anxious to see how he makes his transition back on the sidelines as an assistant. And I like that Matt Isbia is going all in. You brought up Kenny Atkinson. I thought he could have been a nice guy for sure. But remember, Kenny Atkinson was in Brooklyn when KD and Kyrie first arrived.
Right.
And remember, they let it be known to Sean Marks and in their front office that, look, he may be our guy, but we could do better.
Yeah.
I could see how Kenny Atkinson might have not gotten that job, but especially knowing that Matt Isbia and Kevin Durant are hand in hand in this thing for at least the next several years, while Durant is still under contract with the Suns, as well as Booker. So I'm interested to see what new wrinkles he brings defensively. I think he's a coach that's hungry. I think sitting out a year may have done him some good. The way the situation ended in LA was unfortunate. You had a lot of injuries to guys, and then front office ineptitude on the part of Rob Pelinka and others. But that's going to be an interesting move to see. But real quick, there was a report Shams Charania dropped in The Athletic saying that Kyrie Irving wants the Dallas Mavericks to make a trade for LeBron James. I'm a baseball fan, right? I'm a Sox fan. I would love for the White Sox to get Aaron Judge. I would. But the logical part of me knows that will never happen. And I could give you 100 million plus reasons why that will never happen. That's the way I feel about this Kyrie Irving wishing that LeBron come to Dallas will happen, I don't see it, especially with a Luka Doncic, who, as we know, ain't coming off that ball for nobody.
I'll say this. Kyrie's trying to promote the best situation possible for him to get his bag. Because best believe, what's the only team that can give him a max contract and has made it known they're willing to do that? Dallas. That's what he's been seeking. And that's part of why it didn't work out in Brooklyn and he asked for out. They didn't want to give him his money. So I want to go to Dallas. Now, if it was about winning and solely winning, he probably should take a pay cut and go to a Phoenix or go to an LA to win a championship with two players that he knows he has the best times and best success of winning with. Especially LA, because LeBron's still going to be there. LeBron ain't leaving LA. He ain't leaving palm trees to go to straight desert. That's not happening. So because of that, when you really think about it, okay, Kyrie's trying to say, okay, I'm a free agent. I truly can go anywhere I want, but I will not get the amount of money I desire if I go anywhere outside of Dallas. Luka's already here. I'm cool with LeBron James. We got a great relationship. And LeBron did make it public that Luka's one of his favorite player in the league right now. Let's see if we can make that happen. Oh, and by the way, we do have a capable front office that's willing to make moves and an owner that's willing to put out a blank check. Let's go for it. LeBron are probably sitting like, this is so awesome. This is hilarious. He's just sitting there thinking, free press. Keep putting my name out there, Kyrie. Because the reality is, I'm going to use this to apply pressure on the Lakers to make moves. I'm going to use this to make sure I get what I want in LA. And if you were smart, you come with me to LA instead of me going to you. But yeah, wishful thinking. Might have worked in 2K, but it's not going to work in reality.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm definitely with you on that one. I don't see LeBron leaving LA, and I sure as hell don't see LeBron leaving LA to play with Luka Doncic, unless if that backline defense is just gonna be so damn elite to where he could just kick back, you know. But yeah, I can't see that. I just can't. The Lakers say that they haven't expressed interest, I believe, in Kyrie in free agency thus far. You know, that remains to be seen. I when I look at it, I say smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
that's what I say. It's smoke and mirrors. But I want to thank everybody who took out the time to listen to yet another installment of Open Run presented to you by War Media. Make sure to check out all of our shows on the YouTube page. Had NBC Sports Chicago's Glenn Morgan joining the versatile Saul Rodriguez and Joe Tanksley to discuss all of the draft selections that the Chicago Bears made a little over a month and a half ago in Kansas City, along with the rest of the franchise, as well as Saul Rodriguez and Miles Porter on the At Bat podcast, talking about the state of affairs on both the North Side and South Side, among other MLB news and storylines. Got my man Josh Hicks on the Bigs Media with our guy Drew Stevens talking about point guard options in which the Bulls need to explore this upcoming offseason, with the status of Lonzo Ball still up in the air. For myself, Gabriel Wilkins, my man Josh Hicks, so long, everybody.